Zeena, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Christy. Thank you for inviting me.
Let's talk about your memories of Kenneth Anger.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you were first aware of him in your life?
Well, actually, he was a presence in my life going back so far that I don't have a memory of when he first appeared on the scene in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you a funny anecdote about how he became my godfather, because that happened later. That happened around the time, let's see, the year would have been whenever the film The Godfather was released.
1972.
Okay, good time. Yeah, because that was a good year, because that was when a lot was happening in Kenneth Anger's life. And he knew Francis Ford Coppola. I don't know if you know that.
Oh.
And he was, sort of in the San Francisco scene, filmmaker scene. He was kind of drifting out of the Zoetrope studios and drifting out and had connections with another producer called Tom Luddy, and there were a number of directors and producers that Ken knew in the San Francisco Bay Area. When The Godfather came out, because of Ken having known people who worked on The Godfather, and I guess he sort of got it in his head that not that Ken is at all like Marlon Brando or at all like that character, but he sort of got it in his head that he would really like to be a godfather. and I remember when he said it to my father. And before I finish this anecdote, I want to give you a visual to have in mind when I'm discussing Ken.
Okay.
Because probably for me, comparable way of visualizing him at that age, at that time, and in the environment of my family, with my father and mother and the kinds of people that were around then. If you can imagine Blue Velvet, the film Blue Velvet, and
yes.
You know the Dean Stockwell character. Okay.
Yes.
That is how I remember Kenneth Anger. And in relation to the Frank character, the Dennis Hopper character, which doesn't look anything like my father, but he behaves in a similar kind of way that my father behaved in those days. Very thuggish and kind of, he had his issues.
Suave? God damn, you're one suave fucker. You want some beer?
Of course, Frank. Darling, could you bring some glasses? And we'll have a beer with Frank. Thank you. Please sit down.
But the Dean Stockwell character, after I saw Blue Velvet, and I saw it with a work colleague, I was working at UCSF Medical Center in San Francisco, and we after work one day, we decided, we'll just go see this new film, Blue Velvet. This is a digression from what I'm telling you about how I became his goddaughter. But anyway, we went to see Blue Velvet, and after we saw it, we came out of the theater, at the cinema. I said, "What'd you think?" And I was sort of grinning, and she said, "My God, that was horrific." And I was like, "Really?" And I said, "I thought it was hilarious. It was just like the way I grew up. These people." These people are just like the characters from my life. So, and I was specifically thinking Kenneth Anger, because that Dean Stockwell character, his behavior just nailed my memories of how Kenneth Anger's behavior was around our household.
Okay.
So if you have a kind of visual of that performance, that would be a very accurate way of understanding my memories of Kenneth. All you have to do is superimpose Kenneth's face over. Although, the way Dean Stockwell's expressions and his mannerisms, I'm not entirely sure that he didn't pattern that character after Kenneth, even. Because David Lynch is inspired by Anger's films. Yeah, he has mentioned that. Which is nice, because not everybody who's been inspired by Kenneth Anger's films do acknowledge that. So he's one of them who has. So now, to go back in time, with you having that visual image of the Dean Stockwell character from Blue Velvet, Kenneth was kind of dancing around the kitchen saying, stomping his foot, kind of in a sassy way, saying, I want to be a godfather. I want to be a godfather. And my father said, well, then a godfather you shall be. And my father said something like, and he was parodying. You may know the scene in Kenneth's film Invocation of My Demon Brother, where there's the scene where it says, "Zap, you're pregnant. That's witchcraft." You know that part? Okay, so my father said, "Zap, you're a godfather." And that's how, so it is done. And it was a totally spontaneous thing. And then he's like, yeah, he's like shaking his little pitchfork, and yeah, I'm a godfather.
That's amazing.
But of course, it's an absurd thing, because a godfather and a Church of Satan, what sense does that make? In what context and what God? And it's rather illogical. But that's how it happened. And for
all right.
Forevermore, he was my godfather.